Say that you were eating a delicious spoonful of yogurt when you decided to look more closely at the packaging on the container. As you zoom in, you notice that it says that it contains L. acidophilus, and you're wondering what this means. Luckily for you, the label on top of the yogurt container tells you where to go next. It points you to look at the aspects of the microbiome in society, government, science, and industry. You decide to start by looking at the societal aspects of the microbiome. Let's go see what information we can find. The topic of society and the microbiome is really broad, so we're going to have to narrow it down to some specific questions, referring to bacteria. Let's start by looking into the views on the microbiome over time. Research on the microbiome has evolved over centuries. Originally, once we were able to perform proper sanitation, the view was that clean is good because it prevented us from getting infections. However, there are new theories that suggest that too clean is bad. This is called the hygiene hypothesis. It argues that being too clean provides not enough variety to your immune system or your microbiome, meaning that you'll have disease. In this sense, they believe that as we've used more sanitation products such as soap, we've actually seen an increase in prevalence of disease versus when we used to play with dirt. The reality is still unclear, but there's lots of research to be done. Let's look at one local BC microbiologist, Paula Littlejohn. She currently works for the University of British Columbia here in Vancouver, in the Finlay lab. Her current work focuses on understanding the impact of early life micronutrient deficiency on the gut microbiome, host, and later life disease. Let's go ask her some questions about the microbiome. So, how are we shaped by our microbiota?
We are shaped by our microbiota in so many ways. Our microbiota is established at birth and is influenced by the mode of delivery and our initial feeding. This core microbiome has been shown to play a major role in lifelong health. It plays a role in the training of our immune system, taste preferences, metabolism, neurological health, respiratory disease susceptibility, and so much more. So in essence, it shapes who we can become. I say can because we can change it by what we eat, the types of medication we take, and our lifestyle habits, good or bad.
That was such an insightful conversation. And that brings us to our first main question. What potential barriers and opportunities do you see to the implementation of microbiome-based products and services within society? Now let's go look into the microbiome industry in BC. There is definitely a lot of money and a lot of companies that are working on products involving the microbiome here in British Columbia. One part of this is the accessibility that these microbiome technologies have to consumers, for example, the probiotics that you might have in your own house. The industry produces a number of products, including food products, you might think of kombucha or yogurt, weight loss procedures or programs, and supplements that you can take on the daily. Let's explore these weight loss procedures a little more closely, using our friend the mouse. Researchers have shown that there's a difference in the microbiomes of lean animals and overweight animals. They've also found that putting lean animal microbiome into overweight animals actually produces a lean outcome. This has a lot of implications to human health and human weight loss procedures and plans. What does Paula Littlejohn have to say about this? What does the microbiome industry look like in BC? What products are sold and how relevant are they?
I think the microbiome industry in BC is the same as it is in most places. However, British Columbians on a whole are a little more holistic. Also in Canada, naturopathic doctors are a part of the healthcare system, and they will almost always focus on healing the gut as part of their treatment program. And so people are more aware and more educated here in BC on the link between our gut and health. Therefore, the microbiome products such as probiotics, fermented foods, and beverages will do better here because people are more educated about it. However, the industry is probably a little further ahead than the data needed to support it.
This leads us to our main question about the industry of the microbiome. What responsibilities do industries have when marketing microbiome products to consumers? Next up, let's go see how the government plays a role in regulating our microbiota. The government is involved in our microbiota through a number of policies that they put in place to protect research as well as the industry of microbiome. There are a lot of policies with regards to BC health. Let's go look at a couple that have relevance to the microbiome. First, there are cleaning standards. that the government ensures that all hospitals follow. Second, we have standardization of protocols to make sure that specific rules are followed in each situation. Thirdly, the government influences the microbiome research by sending funding to specific projects and locations over others. Now let's go see what our researcher has to say. To what extent can and should the use of our microbiota and information be regulated?
For sure, I think the field needs regulating. The field is still developing. We have only recently developed the tools we need to properly interrogate our microbiome, and at best, we know about 10% about who's there and what they do functionally. But we are still a long ways off. Most of the research that has been published are association studies, not causality. And to really implicate the gut microbiota, we would need to establish causality. Nevertheless, the evidence surrounding most of the associations are really strong. So with regards to regulation, I think about this from two perspectives. The first is research, the second is industry. The field is in sad need of standardization. It's very hard to do meta-analyses for most of the studies because of the huge variability in sample collection, processing, and interpretation of the data. That poses a problem to us getting at causality. We need standard protocols.
This leads us to our third major question. What should be the most important factors governments consider when approving products based on microbiome research? Finally, let's look into the science of microbiome research. The science of the microbiome is not an easy topic, and it requires many different scientists' collaboration. However, there are often lots of conflicting views about the science of the microbiome and what industry is doing compared to what science supports. Let's look into some of the techniques used to study the microbiome. This includes culturing bacteria on petri dishes and looking into the DNA or genetic information of these microbiome organisms. Let's go chat with our local microbiologist. With all the confusion and debate around the microbiome, where can we go next?
I think industry is doing what industry does best, market. And that's pretty sad. But for the most part, North Americans are consumers, and so the industry simply dangles the carrot before us and people just go. I think the products being marketed should have studies to support their claims. They should be held accountable for their market employees, and that will only be achieved through regulation.
All right, what are some hot topics in microbiome research now?
A really exciting area of microbiome research right now is something known as FMT, fecal microbial transplantation. And it's exactly that, transplanting fecal microbiota from a healthy donor to a person suffering from a microbial-related disease. One condition in particular is Clostridium difficile, or C. diff, which has a 95% success rate of FMT over medication. It's safe, it helps improve their quality of life as well as the condition, and so you should expect to see more research in this area as this type of therapy has been approved by the government level.
This leads us to our final major question. How can we identify and address gaps in our current understanding of the microbiome? And where should our research efforts be focused next? Now let's go learn more about Paula Littlejohn's work.
In my lab, I study a form of malnutrition called micronutrient deficiency, or hidden hunger, because symptoms are generally not visible. The work I do currently is aimed at trying to better understand how perturbations to the gut microbiome early in life caused by nutrient deficiency affects lifelong health trajectory of the host. If we better understand the microbiota's role, then we can offer better therapy to treat these conditions at an early age.
Thank you so much for sharing your amazing research with us. Now that we've touched on all the different areas, let's look into our main questions one more time. Today we looked into some major questions from the society, industry, government, and science perspective on the microbiome. What do you think the next steps in microbiome research are? For more educational content like this, check out Genome BC's Gene School for more resources.